That makes lots of sense. My husband and business partner, Gaby Fachler, is next to me. He's here because we're speaking together, but part of it is because if I start coughing, he might take over mid-sentence also. So I want to tell you a little bit about our business and how it's grown and changed over the past 7 years, and share some lessons that we kind of thought, over time we've learned, sometimes the hard way, sometimes just by doing things and going through them, that might resonate in lots of different ways. I think this go around was great because we got to hear what people do, and it's nice to hear that there's other people who sell things, because often we'll be in a room where people are selling themselves, their services. I kind of happy to hear that there's both, but I do think that what we have to say can talk to everybody. If you can save questions for the end, because we've got lots to talk about, and I don't even know how much time we have. So
we have exactly
49 minutes, right?
30.
That's what you have.
25, 30.
No, we're good.
And
we're good.
running late as we usually do. So
Okay. No, we're all good. So, as I said, we've been in business for 7 years. We made Aliyah separately. We met here and got married here. And when I came to Israel, I was a social researcher. I did all sorts of research in health policy. I worked with Olim. I worked in road safety. And Gaby was an informal educator and moved into high-tech space, was a writer, project manager, and how did we get into business? Very, very good question. But basically it was kind of like a meeting of the stars where we found ourselves in between jobs at the same time and started thinking, hey, what do we want to be when we're big? And the conversations just started. So when we started thinking about it, the question was, what do we have? We don't have anything specific. Like we're not going to sell ourselves. I'm not a something. I'm not a therapist, or I'm not an accountant. I don't have a service to sell. And it went back to my growing up. We used to spend summers upstate New York. I mean, there's very few Americans in this room, but there's a whole dirty dancing culture where people go upstate for the summer, where you basically leave your lives in the city. You go upstate. This is where I spend my summers in South Fallsburg. South Fallsburg, and this is my parents' store. It's called Kosher Socks.
Just to clarify, this is Dirty Dancing with the horror, because now it's mostly Hasidic.
And I grew up working in that store. Here's my dad. You can see the store and my mom. And this store is still open every summer. My parents are in their late 70s. It was only open July and August. And I would work. I was the best worker in the store, and I swore I will never sell anything to anyone in my life. I don't want to do this. Well, here I am today. So Gaby and I, as I said, we were in between jobs, and we said, what can we do? What can we? What could be something that we would enjoy doing, that we could do together, that would give us some flexibility in terms of having a family? And we started talking to my parents and thinking, could we put this crazy store online? And the answer was really, actually, we can't, because it's a crazy mom and pop store where you pop in and you say, oh, I need a needle for my air pump. Do you have one? And they say, sure, we've got that here. Oh, I need a shower curtain. We've got that there. That wasn't going to be a product we could sell online. But leading up to the summer every year, my parents would go to different schools and set up what they called a camp show, which was for kids going to summer camp, which in the States can be up to 2 months, where you send your kids away, and they need a long list of things, from sleeping bags and suitcases and laundry bags and storage items, et cetera, et cetera. And they opened the back of their truck and they would sell all this stuff. And that was the idea that we started with, and we spent a lot of time with my parents discussing it and thinking about it, and then ourselves. And in 2017, with a $5 logo from someone on Fiverr, we started our business. Here we are, and we said, let's start. We're ready to go. This is what the website looks today. I'm happy again to talk about what exactly we do and how we do it later on, but that's not really the focus here. This is our website. We have a new logo that cost us, a little more than that. We did rebrand a few years ago, but it's everything that you need for summer camp under one roof. That's our idea. We work from the States. This is not for Israelis. Our warehouse is in the States. We work with Americans. Today we work not through schools anymore. We work through camps themselves to get to the customers. We work directly to the customers. We've grown, we've moved, we've changed. But that's business side A. Business side B was, hey, we live in Israel. We could do the same thing here. Lots of gap year students are coming to Israel. People who they can't bring that much stuff. They can't schlep their blankets and their pillows and their plastic storage drawers from home. And side 2 of the business is Pack for Israel, which is everything you need in Israel for your dorm. And that started the same year, and it started out of our living room because we said, hey, we're here. I can go to the supermarket and buy a few snacks and sell them to the person who's coming because they don't have that ability. And that's really where it started.
Shout out to Kinneret. That's her
Kinneret did this. Credit to Kinneret. Anyway, so just to give you an idea, I'm going to give you one slide of numbers. Bear with me. I love numbers also. I'm really weird. And so I will explain it to you, but I want to show you how we've grown over time. So it's, as I said, we're just finishing our 6th year, starting our 7th year. This summer is kind of the mark of when we start. This is what our business looks like. This is the years between 2017 and 2022. The blue bar is the number of orders that we've had each year. The orange bar is the revenue. Okay, so we went from something like 50 orders in 2017 to almost 5,000 in 2022. Okay, so that's like, thank you. The orange line, again, that first year, it was a cute little side job. I had an extra 5 shekels in my pocket to buy falafel. Last year, over $700,000 in revenue. That doesn't, profits is different, but I just wanted to say that you can build a business. I mean, if you asked me 7 years ago, I was like, we're going to live off of this, we're this. Over time, we both had other jobs. We've both left those jobs. We're full-time in the business, and we also have people working for us today. So we've got warehouses in both countries where we pay for the services of the warehouse. We don't actually own the worker. We don't pay the workers directly. It's called a 3PL model, which is third-party logistics. In both countries, as I said, we have 2 part-time workers that work directly, and we work with a bunch of freelancers as well. So that's the part one of what I wanted to say. Part 2 is, let me share a little bit of wisdom. Now, I'm the type, you can look behind me, but you just get to see pretty pictures. This is Gaby and me. Is this your slide?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'll just hand over the thing to Gaby here. We're going to go back and forth.
If you notice the little dip in the line earlier, that was COVID. I'm sure you all had that in some form or another. So just to, I'll add 1 or 2 little points of introduction, which will kind of bring me into this slide. One of the kind of aha moments that I had before we started the business, I just left HP after 12 years of being there. I still have my bag over here, which I thought someone was admiring before. They're going, what a nice bag. And then I'm like, no, but there was a colored bag here in the middle. So that was the bag.
It was me.
Very confused. So at the time, we still hadn't, I was just going to look for a different job. So one of the things I was looking at the time, I was getting into like marketing, writing, social media, that kind of stuff. And I applied for a job at Wix. And one of the tests there was to write a blog, and the blog that they had me write was something about Wix Stores, which is a platform for running e-commerce, which we don't use, by the way. But I started writing, and I thought, I got a cool idea. I'll do something about my parents-in-law, because they're always talking about doing a website. So I started writing, and I was like, oh, this could be fun. And I'm like, hold on a second, maybe we could do this. So it was like this kind of ping moment. Now, just so you know something about my in-laws, I love them dearly and they have a wonderful store. But them and a website is like Shamayim Va'aretz. So people would say to me, well, why don't you just take their systems and kind of import it into your website? So their system is a notebook on the TV from, that's the 220 sales, and 221 are on a different TV, which they've probably lost now, but it all works. But it's not at all like tech. So we kind of had to go kind of from scratch from that point of view, but we had them as starting a tribe, and we'll talk about that a bit later. So the first thing we want to talk about is you are your best asset. Bring yourself to your business. A lot of us, some of you, I could hear from the introductions of near the beginning of the business, some are in the middle, some, we're all at different stages. But I think that what you realize as you start is that you need to leverage what you bring to the business. Okay, you can sit with a piece of paper and think of lots of wonderful ideas, but the question is always going to be, what do I bring and what can I leverage in order to actually bring something unique? This is Yom Aliyah, did you say, Sherry? Yeah.
It is.
So there's, if you think about that as Olim, there's a lot of difficulties coming to Israel. And we can focus on those difficulties. There's a lot of difficulties of language, and you have a lot of disadvantages compared to someone who grew up here. But you can also flip that and say, what advantages do I bring that locals actually don't have? So an obvious one is English. That's a large reason why there's so many writers in the room, why I started off as a technical writer. No one comes out of school dreaming of being a technical writer. But people come to Israel knowing that I speak English, and that's an advantage that I have over others, and they leverage that in order to get into the high-tech industry. So there's a lot of things that we have as Olim that we bring to the table that other people that give us that advantage. So our advantage in this business is obviously the language, our whole connection to the US, to the camping world, to be that bridge with Pack for Israel, our second website. You actually see it more clearly because it's people who are in the US coming to Israel, so we have to deal with Israeli suppliers, but we also have to understand the mindset of an American parent bringing their child here. So two people who grew up in Israel would have a much more difficult time doing a website like this. So that's just like an example of bringing yourself to the thing. The other thing is that if there were different two people around this table who were doing this website, it would look very different. Not worse and not necessarily better, but different, because we bring ourselves to the picture. So one example of that is when you're looking to attract people to your website, there's lots of different things you can do in terms of advertising, traffic, etc. One of the things that I've done throughout my career is I've done a lot of writing. So I naturally gravitated towards doing a lot of content on the website. We have loads of resources on both websites that actually bring people in, and that's because I'm taking one of my talents or some of my experience and channeling it into what I do in order, and I can bring lots of other examples. But the point is, when you bring yourself to the business, you bring your advantage in, and you also actually makes it more authentic. The more that you're in there and doing what you enjoy doing. Our whole approach to customers, which Melissa's going to talk about in a second, comes from a place of really wanting to help people through what they're doing. So I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, so every business doesn't exist without a customer. But one of our early mistakes was that we're selling things for camp. So we can sell to anybody. Everybody can be my customer. You're sending your kid to camp. It doesn't matter how old you are, what country you're in, what religion you are. It doesn't matter. We can sell a sleeping bag to anybody. Are you going to camp? Great, I'll sell you a sleeping bag. And we found that we were being very generic in our messaging because who are we selling to? We were talking to everybody. So we didn't want to say we were scared to sign off our emails Shabbat Shalom because we're Jewish, but I don't want to tell you because that might offend you that you're not Jewish, and or we didn't say we were in Israel, or all sorts of things like that. But we realized very early on that we had a natural affinity to people who are similar to us. So Gaby's got a different accent than me, but I did grow up in New York, and I did go to camp 1 or 2 summers. And and as we said, I didn't mention one of the early things that my parents did for us was to hand us a bunch of papers of people who had left their email addresses because they always dreamed they would do something with that. So we had this list of Jewish, pretty much modern Orthodox and to the right people. And when we talked to camps, when we started talking to camps, it was much easier to talk to camps when we could say, oh, I went to Mosheva, yeah, that's so cool, as opposed to calling YMCA of Forest Valley, who I didn't have anything to say to. And it took us a while to kind of start zooming in and niching in and figuring out. Somebody here mentioned a very niche business, and I said, aha, Deborah, you did. very niche, that like, how many young grandparents are there that want to redo their house for their grandchildren? But the more you find that niche and you can talk to that niche, it's easier to get to 90% of a niche than it is to get to 10% of everybody. And if you can grab that whole niche, that's worth a lot more money than this grand, I'm going to sell a sleeping bag to anybody. And that was really something that took us over time to figure it out. But once we started talking to our people, and this picture is here on purpose. It's not someone I know, but that's our person. When we're writing material, when we're deciding what's going up on social media, even when we write a description of a product, we're talking to this mom. She's Jewish. She lives in New York or New Jersey. She's got a few kids going to camp, and she's got some money. And that's important. It's like, if you're going to camp, you probably have money, but you need to have a little bit more, so you're happy to say, spend another $500. My kid's going to camp. They knew this and knew that and knew the third thing. And I'd love to put their name on a duffel bag. I'd love to write their name across, another $20. That's fine. So we started knowing who we were talking to, and that's the woman. Now, don't mistake that. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to sell to somebody else. If a 90-year-old grandpa wants to buy his great-granddaughter a present and he happens to be Catholic and living in Florida, well, great, you can come to buy from me too. I'm not offensive in any way. I'm not, I'm not spewing hate to anybody else who's not in my target group. But when Gaby writes, he does most of the writing, that's who he's really speaking to. And that's really important. Again, I think it's, once we realized that, we were really able to kind of shoot the business upwards. Okay. Next thing, create a tribe of raving fans. So I didn't make up the idea of a raving fan. Have people heard of the Raving Fans book? A couple of people? I see you looking. I told you about it. If you haven't heard of it, I'm going to talk about it a little bit now. A tribe, people like you, I just spoke about that. What's a raving fan? Now, when people say, hey, I use Tali, that was like a really amazing recommendation we heard here from Hila. Usually they come with a problem first and you help them with that problem. So if somebody orders, this cup from me and I sent it to them and it gets there on time and they got it, well, they had that was easy. But they're not going to be a raving fan. A raving fan is going to talk about you at their Shabbat table. They're going to, say, you got to use this business because you can't imagine this incredible, the incredible interaction that I had with this store. So oftentimes with us, somebody will come to us with a problem, and we've made it our business that our customer service is so over the top amazing, you can't help yourself but talk about us. Now, it's something that's genuine. It sounds like a little bit of a put on, like I'm going to knock you over, but I'm kind of real. I'm pretty genuine. And so I just wanted to show you this email we got yesterday. This is in response to an email we sent out. It was just an email saying, how early do you have to pack for camp? It went out this week. Somebody felt when they read Gaby's email that they had to respond. And that's kind of what we're talking about. You can have a second and have a read. I don't need to read it to you.
Actually, can you?
Ah, sure, I know how to read.
Just testing you. No,
I just wanted to say that this is my first time sending a child to sleepaway camp, and your helpful tips and instructions are so helpful. I love that you seem to assume the reader has never done this before, and you really take the time to explain every single step. Thank you so much for doing this. So, woman's problem, I'm sending my kid to camp, where do I start? Gaby didn't even know he was answering her question. He did, because we've answered that question many times, but didn't know he was addressing this person's specific issue or need, but he hit it on the head. And she felt like she couldn't help but respond. But I'm gonna give you some customer service examples. We sent out an email. One of our biggest products is this huge 42-inch trunk. You can't take it on an airplane, but everybody ships their bags to camp. And we, over the past years, they're huge. Like literally, you're going to fit your whole house into it.
Buddy.
And it's one of our most expensive products.
Yourself, buddy.
They're over $100, and you can get your name embroidered for another whatever it is. And there are people who buy 4 of these, or 6 of these, or 8 of these. And it's quite nice to sell those. I do have to say, it's a lot of fun. And we're at a point where we've been manufacturing them ourselves and bringing them in lots of different colors. So we've got this really pretty, I should have brought a picture, but you can look on the website, beautiful bag that we sell. And we said, okay, we're open for pre-orders in January. These are the color bags that are coming in this year. So, reserve your bags. And it's really nice because it's a good way to generate some cash in the off season when we're not really selling anything. And we get an email back, a response that says, these are really nice bags. I would love one for my daughter, but there are lots of places you could buy it cheaper. And I said, what? Hello? Yeah, like why would somebody write that to me? My initial response was to be offended. And I took a step back because we've been working with a great business coach, Natalie Garson, for 2 years. And I took a step back and I remembered something she said to us, which was, if someone wants to engage, you engage. For some reason, this woman thought that should come into my inbox. So instead of being offended, well, let's see what she's saying. It took some time. We always sit down about those sorts of responses, like how we don't let our customer service people deal with it. That's something we take on our plate. How do we respond to this person? And Gaby wrote a really nice email. As I said, he's our writer, and said, I'm so glad that you liked our stuff enough to let us know. But when you buy this in another place, just make sure you're buying something that's of real quality. The reason why our bags are expensive are A, B, C, D, and E. Within a few hours, we had an apology saying, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to send that to you, but since it's already out there, I really want to tell you how much I appreciate that the owner cared enough to come online and write back to me, and I will be buying those bags. Thank you so much. Now, that's a raving fan. That's somebody who maybe she didn't mean to, maybe God made her press the, reply instead of the forward. I don't know. It doesn't matter. There are opportunities that come our way. And it's important to have a look at them and say, this is an opportunity. Again, I'm easily offended. I'll be angry all day because someone told me the price was too high. But that's not it. That's not it. And it doesn't mean they won't pay it. And it doesn't mean you have to go give them a discount. It means talk. Just have a talk. Another thing that we had once, we do a lot of printing custom designs. And our policy is that if we made the mistake, so we'll replace it. So if you ordered a youth medium, but we sent you youth small, so we'll replace it. If the printing went wrong, we'll replace it. But if you made the mistake, well, that's your problem, right? So you bought the wrong size. You cut off the sleeves and then you didn't like how it looked. Well, it's not my problem, right? Why should I lose money because you made a mistake? Early on, someone wrote back to us when we said, well, this is our policy, just order a new one. I don't remember exactly what the case was. You want a bigger size, you chose wrong, you want to order a new one. And he said, you should be giving me a new one for free. And look at that face, Michelle. Like, what do you mean? Why should we be giving it to you for free? And again, sit down, conference. It took a while because the guy was really obnoxious. So when people are obnoxious to me, it's like, I don't even want you as my customer. Just go away. But we sat down and we thought about it, and we thought, what is this guy really saying? He's saying, I made a mistake. I know I made a mistake, and I'm frustrated about that mistake. Is there anything you can do to make me feel a little bit better about my making that mistake? And we decided that when this happens, the new policy from then on is going to be anybody who makes their own mistake, there's a code called size change, and we offer them 30% off to buy the same product in a different size. You made the mistake, you're admitting you made the mistake, but you still need the new product. Since then, we've had so many people tell us how amazing we are. We don't lose any money, we still make money, not as much money, obviously, but it's really something that those people, they're gonna come back. They come back and they come back again and they buy the next sweatshirt and then they'll buy their whole wardrobe from us. Just because we were, that's my other bad thing. I get offended easily and I grew up being cheap. So Gaby has been really good about tempering that in our personal life as well as the business life, that it's not always about the dollar. It's not always about one more dollar and one less dollar, or $10 off. And it's something that I've really made part of me and passed on to my customer service people, and that's this idea. So you're welcome to have a look at the book of the raving fan. Really, you want the people out there and just talking about you positively, and saying, this is what you've really done for me.
Okay. How long do we have? 5 minutes? Okay. So we have 2 more slides. I'll keep them short. Know your numbers. This is like the least sexy part of running a business, and people like to ignore it because it's not so fun to talk about it at a dinner table, but it is absolutely critical to any business. And it goes on so many levels. And I can give a few anecdotes about that. Especially when you start a business, so it's always very exciting when you get that first sale. If you're working on any of these e-commerce platforms, so every time you get a sale, there's this little ka-ching on your cell phone. Even now, it's still like kind of cool. When we got our first sale, I think it was Yom Ha'atzmaut, we did a little jig around the house. The kids still kind of remind us about it. But the thing is that you can get kind of carried away by the sales and by the excitement, and you may not have something that's actually a feasible business. So you could sell lots of things. You could sell 100 things, but if it costs you more to make those 100 things, then you're not actually doing anything. I mean, it's fun, but you really need to look down at those numbers. So I'll give you 2 examples of that. When we started doing the swag, we do camps can build a swag store on our website, basically, where we have all their designs on different items and people order them. So that was like a new thing we started doing. It was going great. And then at the end of the year, we sat down and let's break down all the expenses. Now, that beautiful chart that Melissa showed you at the beginning, that's revenue. Profit is a very small part of that, and we try to increase that all the time. But when we sat down and looked at it, it was like, all of a sudden, we're making like very little on the stuff. That's not okay. That was kind of a wake-up call on 2 levels. A, we changed our model. We had to bring up, so there's always a temptation to keep the prices really low. That's a whole different discussion. Prices don't have to be low. They have to be something that people are prepared to pay for, and they are prepared to pay when they're getting a good service. And that could be a whole discussion on its own. So we adjusted the pricing accordingly, but it also made me aware that we can't look at this at the end of the year. This is something that you've got to be on top of all the time. It doesn't mean that breakfast, lunch, and supper, but at least when you set up your numbers correctly, if you have a system of every couple of weeks, every month, looking exactly what's going on, those numbers tell a story. And if you miss that story, you can be missing a whole lot of potential profit or potential loss you could avoid. I'll give one little tiny anecdote, and it sounds like so mundane, but it's so important. These trunks that we spoke about earlier, so we were selling these trunks and they're going well, and then again, we look at the breakdown and almost all the profits are going on the shipping. It's like these things are huge, so shipping costs are also huge. So we're thinking, can we even sell these things at a profit? And we sort of broke our heads over it until I realized that the boxes that the warehouse was shipping them in were these giant boxes, but they were actually too big for the trunk. Now, so you say, okay, so what's the big deal? So there's a little space. The price between a box like this and a box like this when it comes to volume was shamayim va'aretz. So cutting off a few centimeters off the box, we actually went and got custom boxes made, knocked down the shipping by like $10, $15. Now, it sounds so stupid, but you could go for 5 years wasting $15 a trunk every time you're sending it out. So the devil is so in the details. And this is also something that we could talk about for hours. I just mentioned the finance stuff. There's anyone who deals with marketing here will tell you about measuring KPIs. You could do the most wonderful social media campaign where your mom tells you looked amazing, but if you didn't get any followers, any kind of response, any kind of anything, it wasn't such an amazing campaign. You still may have looked amazing, but you need to measuring the whole time. That's the numbers tell a story, and we need to be on. And it's easy to want to avoid that. Don't. Embrace your numbers. Final slide, and what I have left, about a minute. Growing a business is a journey, and every stage you're going to have different challenges. The point here is that we're constantly seeing that you can't, when you start a business, you can't solve all the problems, and you don't have to, because they're problems that don't even exist when you start. So when we started selling to people coming for the year on gap year, we didn't have an issue of like how we're going to deliver 5,000 orders, because there weren't 5,000 orders. Our first issue is, do we have what's called the MVP, a minimum viable product? Is there a market here? Is there something that can actually work? And for the first year of our business, we were shipping out of our living room. We had in our machsan, in our living room. When it turned to kete drawers being piled up next to my bed, at that point I was like, nah, this house thing isn't working out so well anymore. But that's a good problem to have. When you're outgrowing your current things and you see that you need to scale, so that's a whole new challenge. So we thought, okay, now we need to move into a warehouse. Within 1 year, that warehouse wasn't big enough, so we moved to a different one. The point is that different challenges come at different times, and you need to be prepared for that. That you don't, if you solve a problem today, it doesn't mean you're not going to have any more challenges. Challenges are good. That's about growing the business. The last thing I'll mention is about hiring. Hiring is a big thing for anyone who wants to scale. I'll say in Sogrime that scaling is a lot over here. It's not just about what am I doing, because anyone can really scale. It's, do I actually believe that I have something worthwhile that is scalable? When we started out, we were like, it's just the two of us. We don't want to deal with anyone else. This is our business, and when it gets too big, we'll just like slow down. You can't. And not only can't you, but you actually, when you realize you've got a good thing going, you want to grow it. And hiring, you don't start a business and hire 5 people. It's not going to work. You don't have money for that. But you need to identify when that time comes. And when that time comes, that's the new challenge. How do I hire my first person? And then it's, how do I hire my first team, etc. The point is that at every different point, you need to be prepared to move to that next stage, and also realize that that next stage is going to bring its own new challenges that you didn't have to experience at the beginning because they weren't relevant yet.
Now, one thing before I invite anybody who wants to talk with either of us to really get in touch, we like to drink coffee all the time, on Zoom, in real life, and whatever. We're, excuse me, we're busy, but we're also very into networking. I'll be networking at the front door. That's actually how we found our current warehouse, was that someone delivered something, and I started talking to him, and Gaby walked in and he said, oh, you're the guy from the toy store. It happened to be the owner of the toy store, and because he lived down the road, so obviously he's going to deliver in Modi'in. And Gaby said, by the way, where do you keep all your stuff? And he said, oh, I've got this guy David. And well, now we're at David. So you don't know where you're going to find. Huh? Yes.
Yeah.
No, not Balagan.
No,
sorry.
not
No. Sorry.
This
No,
is how
forget
we
the guy.
find the bouncer.
Oh, nice. That's good. Yeah, you never know. Talking and talking and talking. Who's going to help you with what? And I think, that's an important part of what Sherry said. Maybe we'll help each other get business. Maybe you'll know someone who's sending a kid to Israel for the year, and you'll say, hey, I heard of this great business. But I think we have a lot more resources that when we pool them, we get in the room together. But I'm going to say one more word, which is what's it like working with your husband? Because I know you're all thinking about that. We're totally good. So, everything is fine. And we love it. And we know a lot of people can't do that. But yeah, it's actually happy to talk about that at another time. So thank you so much.
We're going to go on to our next speaker, and then we're going to have a break.